Hey, David T.S. Wood here, and welcome to My Extra Mile, the network marketing edition. This is week 6. It was a 6-part series. So many people had reached out to me and asked, because of these changing times, about to just really focus in on, network marketing as a profession, the basics, or not the basic skills, the necessary skills. And that's what we've done week after week after week with multiple six-figure and 7-figure income earners. If you haven't watched the entire series, please go back to week 1 and come all the way through. If you're not in network marketing, I'm sure you've learned some great mindset, great skill sets that you could bring into all areas of your life. If you're not in Isagenix, this is a company that I partnered with 16 years ago. I truly believe it's one of the greats on the planet. But if you're not a part of that, don't worry. Welcome, enjoy. We can learn together. We're happy to share all these secrets, as it were, with you to help you as well. This week, this couple are brilliant. This is all about the art of duplication. What we say about our profession and why it's so profound is it's not easy, but it is simple. And we're saying, look, if you can't take any of the skills and learn them and be able to teach them immediately. So in other words, they're so simple as you learn them and you're able to teach them because they're duplicatable. That is the power of this profession, the art of duplication. And if we want to understand leveraged income, to be able to earn residually, in other words, you do the work once, you get paid over and over and over and over again, all right? It's remarkable. So this couple will really, they're not a couple, but these two individuals will lead you through this power of duplication and the power of the mind. Thank you for being here for the entire series. I hope you've learned something. I hope that you're using this to be able to create your side hustle business so that you can truly lead extraordinary lives where you can expand your mind, expand your heart, expand your skill set, and expand your impact. Enjoy the show with the incredible Zach Slobin and Lindsay Wynia. This is the, what do you call it? In baseball, what's that person that comes out, that hits last?
Seventh inning stretch?
The closer, we bring out the muscle at the end here to close this
thing. Hold on. I gotta save you and your Britishness right now. I think what you're referring to, I don't want you to look bad. I think
Too late. You just did it.
I think you're referring to the cleanup hitter. Is that what you were going to say?
Yeah, that guy. Yeah.
That's the fourth hitter, but that's okay. It's the same concept. We'll bring it up.
I thought there was a guy that came out right at the end that only pitched like one inning.
That's the closer. That's right.
That's what. Oh, so who's British now then, buddy?
Maybe we should have a pint and figure it out.
Okay, we will. All right. So well, this is week 6. There's been so many great leaders that have shared everything from the vision, the why, how to onboard clients, how to present, how to get people started, the ABCs of selling, how to close, handling objections, social media. So there's been everything, right? But I think we all agree that, what makes our profession work, and for those that work it well, is the power and the art of duplication. And something that you both do incredibly well. But I want to start with you, Lindsay, the idea that you were in a brick and mortar pizza business. And when we talk about the art of duplication and you talk about a franchise, what was previous to sort of coming into our profession, what was it like when you were in that, when you were sort of using duplication and a franchise system to run a business? Was that an easy concept for you to get hold of? Why do you think they use it? Why is duplication so powerful in that arena?
So in a franchise, when you buy a franchise, the whole point is duplication. Like if you just were to open your own store and had your own business model and your own products and things like that, you're on your own. Like no one's telling you what to do. But in a franchise, you're actually purchasing the duplication is what you're purchasing. You're purchasing all the recipes. You're purchasing like all the measurements. You're purchasing all the merchandising. You're purchasing all the, signs and all the details. And that's the whole point of franchise in the first place, is there's less work and probably less investment up front from actually just starting your own business. Because if you're starting your own business, as a franchisee, everyone has to get their lease on the store. Everyone has to get their product in. Everyone has, but then if you don't do a franchise, you have to get your marketing, your design, your sign. Like, you have to think of all of that. I don't really think people understand how much work actually goes into doing a franchise business or otherwise, because there's so much work that goes into that process. So a franchise really is, you're purchasing the duplication. That's what you're purchasing when you purchase a franchise, for sure.
Yeah. And you sort of talk about the limitations, because a moment ago, just before we really started broadcasting, you kind of said, thank goodness I'm no longer in a brick and mortar or in a franchise. What would that be like today, knowing what you know now, having become a professional network marketer and understanding what you're able to do with the same power of duplication, same idea of using systems, but right. What would be different for you today if you were back in that pizza store?
Well, first of all, we had an insane amount of overhead. It's just tons of overhead. I mean, I think the lease on our store in Southern California was $4,000 a month, so like double a mortgage, or maybe it was closer to 5 or 6. Like, I'd have to drag my husband in here, but it was a lot of money that hung over your head every single month. We had employees, and they're always like, "Oh, you're a franchisee owner. You can make whatever you want. Bring home your take-home pay." No. You pay your employees first, because you need people to show up to their job, and then you pay yourself. So depending on your margins. And for those of you who don't know what a margin is, it's how much you're bringing in versus your cost. It's a margin. Sometimes your paycheck isn't that much because you're the first person to take a pay cut if the margins aren't there. So, in Isagenix and network marketing, there's no overhead, there's no margins. I'm eating my overhead. I have no employees. There's so much less risk, to be totally honest. I mean, literally, to buy your box is your investment. When we started our franchise, it was $250,000 just for the franchise, and that money's gone.
I have a question.
Spoiler alert, we didn't make it back.
I was going to say, but isn't it interesting that people are willing to pay $250,000? But what was the promise? So they say, hey, if you spend $250,000 on this pizza franchise, what were they saying you could make back? I mean, how do they say it's like a 10-year return? Is it like a 3-year return? What was your...
Oh, good. 5 years is when you're supposed to break even.
Wow.
5 years. Yeah.
Wow.
So, and in 5 years with Isagenix, I had made over $2.5 million. I mean...
She just slips out. Did you see that, Zach? Just slips out. Oh, yeah, in 5 years, 2.5.
Well,
how many years were you in the brick and mortar?
5 years.
And so it's 5 years. What was your total revenue? We've got to be fair. You were 5 years.
I actually don't know. I actually don't know. I don't know those numbers off the top of my head.
Okay.
But
it wasn't interesting enough to remember.
When we walked away, it was painful. I probably blocked it out of my mind. When we walked away because our stores were not breaking even. So we had hit the 5-year mark. We had given it our all. I had spent hundreds, thousands of hours marketing, and the stores were struggling. So really, when I came into Isagenix, that's why I came. I came as a plan B to our plan A that wasn't working out. And I had literally a year and a half to recreate our income so that my husband could choose to walk away from that if he needed to.
Wow.
And I guess, like, if you want to get nitpicky, he could have stayed. We could have stayed. We could have closed the 2 stores that weren't doing well. We had one flagship store that was okay. But honestly, when it came right down to it, I gave him the choice. I was like, you can continue to do what you're doing. I'll continue to do what I'm doing. And we'll both have our businesses, or you can come home and support me, help me with the kids, because I have 5 children. And we can, I'm doing the business. He doesn't build it with me, but you can support me so that I have more time to work my business. And he decided to come home. And I'll tell you why right now. He was tired of the stress of small business ownership. It was extremely stressful. Those bills and the leases were hanging over his head every single month. And I wouldn't say the decision was easy, but it was a relief. Like the day that he closed those stores and came home, it took him some time to like find his footing at home and things like that. But he was so happy. And I'll never forget this one story. He said, I ask him on occasion, I'm like, so like, how you doing? Do you like your life? Like, how's it going? And
do you like this?
You like being retired? You know? And he goes, one morning when I was taking Jackson to school, I pulled up to a stoplight and I looked over at the car next to me, and it was 6 a.m. There was a guy sitting there with his suit and tie on, and he looked exhausted, dazed, confused. Like he looked miserable. And he goes, I sat right there in that moment, and he was like, I'm so grateful that's not me. So I think he's very happy with where he's at and how this has turned out. And
I think, Zach, we can end the show now. Sorry, bud. I mean, I think we got it all.
Sorry.
Zach, no, it's fine.
I didn't really think I was going to be here anyway with Lindsay here. I was surprised to see my name on the roster. I was like, what are you doing?
You know, I just want to remind everyone that the internet, it's breaking up a little tiny bit. We have a storm here right now, so if that's what's causing it, I just want to apologize. But stay in there. The content's going to be rich, whether the quality of the sound, a couple of times there, Lindsay, you kind of came in and out for me. So, Zach, I'm going to put you on the spot because Lindsay just sort of retold a story about, you know, her before and after. But if I was to ask you, if I gave you 90 seconds to answer this question for me, why did you choose, or why network, not even why you chose it, why network marketing? If someone's listening right now and they're kind of on the edge, they're thinking, oh, maybe I'll, you know what people like, they're dabble, oh, I'll try it. But why should someone seriously consider network marketing? You have 90 seconds. I will stop you at 90. Ready? Go.
When you look at the realities of the disparity of who controls the wealth in the world versus who doesn't, 95% of the wealth is controlled by 5% of the population, and those 5% are made up of business owners and investors. And simply because the people on the other side of the spectrum, the 95% who control 5% of the wealth, just don't understand how money works. They understand that if I work a certain amount of hours, I make a certain amount of money. People that are financially literate, and they've become that way through their own self-study, because we're not taught that in school, understand that if I can develop a system that creates cash flow for me in a leveraged way, that I can remove myself from the equation and not have to constantly work in my business, but work on my business. And so when you look at all of the variables that go into a viable business model, and you want to remove the headaches that come with so much of building a traditional business like Lindsay experienced, network marketing is the only thing where I've ever seen where you can actually create true leverage through business ownership, create a cash flow producing income system, and then take that money and invest it into more and more money in a way in which doesn't discriminate against anyone's background. So I think when you look at the economy and where we are and how to move from that left side to the right side and play with the big boys and big girls if you want, right? Network marketing provides the lowest barrier to entry to create the exact same type of result.
122, buddy. I'm telling you, you're good. You're good. You're so good. Let me ask you another question then, just to put you on the spot, because there's a lot of network marketing companies. In fact, there's about 2,000 start every year. Now, we know what happens. A lot of them don't start for the right set of reasons. And there's only a few really, really, I would say personally, this is just me talking, really great companies. And there's, you know, I don't know many exceptional. I consider the company that, you know, we're in, I believe it's exceptional. But, you know, there is a difference between, you know, mediocre and great. But, you know, Zach, you know, you and Eden could choose any company, really. But if I ask you the same question with 90 seconds, why Isagenix? Just so those people listening, remember, there's new people listening right now that are kind of maybe in a dabbling mindset. Maybe they're, you know, they've spoken to a few people and they've had a few no's and they're thinking how hard this is, right? And maybe thinking of quitting. But why Isagenix? Why is Isagenix the right company for someone to be, you know, hitching their wagon to today, 2020, November 2020? What's the answer? Ready? 90 seconds and go.
If I lined up 100 network marketers in different companies, there's a high likelihood, and this isn't to take anything away from them, that they would pitch you on the quality of their products, the timing in the marketplace, and their compensation plan, which every network marketer is going to tell you those things. And I think that although those are important factors to consider when evaluating a network marketing company, for me, I look at one thing and one thing only as the foundation of it all. And that is, what are the values of the owners of the company? As you and I know, David, because we've studied from, you know, a lot of the same concepts and whatnot, there's an old saying that the roots bear the fruits. And so we've got to ask ourselves the question of what are the roots of the company? What are the foundational values of the company? What the essence of the company? How do we know that the owners are going to constantly make decisions that are in alignment with my best interest over the corporation's best interest? And so after years of being in the industry and being behind the curtains and things like that, and having the fortune of spending so much time with Eric, Jim, and Kathy Coover, I think it's indisputable the level of integrity that they possess. And the fact that I've watched them consistently choose the people of this company over the profits of this company time and time again, regardless. And the times where they've taken the high road, regardless, to me speaks volume about the staying power of this company. Because in my experience, in the long run, the gimmicks, the tricks, whatever may be, they're going to come and go. But integrity lasts forever. And so for me, hands down, it comes down to the Coopers as the X factor.
Yeah, he's showing off now. Look, 127. It's like he's got this internal clock. He knows exactly what he's doing. I'm going to ask you the same question because I think you really led with the franchise model, and you could kind of hear why network marketing, because you had that visceral experience, and we'll touch on it again. But again, especially when we look at the plethora of companies, Lindsay, as a woman, why Isagenix? Why is this the company that you've hitched your wagon to? And why should someone listening be really taking note of why they're choosing? Because I always say that's probably one of the most significant choices we're going to make. First of all is the vehicle, but then the company within that vehicle. So the vehicle of network marketing for me is the greatest vehicle on the planet that I know for the average person to succeed. But then within that, why I partner with the Cougars is because of so many things. But I'm really interested from you as a woman, because 80% of our population is women. So why Isagenix? Ready?
Oh, I have time too. Okay.
Yeah, 90 seconds.
The products are life-changing. Honestly, I don't even have to say anything more, because I didn't actually come to network marketing for network marketing. I came for the product. And I might be one of very few people who came for the product, but the products changed my life, and I've tried thousands of products. So think about that for a second. If that doesn't blow your mind, I don't know what would, because if it's not going to change your life, why would you continue to use it? Or if it's not going to benefit you in some mutually exclusive way, why would you continue to buy it? Like, this product changed my life. Isagenix came to me because I needed a change and a shift in my health. The products absolutely changed that and changed my life, and I became committed to the products. And when I started to understand the network marketing model, being a franchisee owner, it's not a hard leap. It was a complete no-brainer.
Awesome. She's showing off. That's a minute. Okay. All right. Zach, when we think about, again, the people listening right now, this is week 6 of this series. We're going to get to a call to action at the end, but is there any kind of words of wisdom you have about just how they approach sort of the end of a series like this? What's something you want them to be thinking about, as far as, because we know it doesn't matter what happens when they listen to us right now. The minute they push, end, or they hang up, or whatever they're doing, that's really when the journey starts. But what's maybe something you want them to be considering before we get into what we're going to be sharing today?
I think commit once and do the work forever is the thing that I always come back to. Commit once and do the work forever. I think it's really easy for someone to be watching this video and go, oh, look at Lindsay. She was successful as a franchise owner, right? Zach, he just nailed that in 90 seconds, blah, 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 blah. But what people don't know is the years and years and years that I spent failing brutally, miserably, painfully to learn to have the skill sets that I have now. And if you're willing to approach this like you would anything else, which is with the conviction of being willing to practice in a consistent way over time, that's what's going to produce results. If you're looking to microwave this thing, it's not going to produce results. That's just the reality. So if you stick to some of the principles we're going to talk to and you stay committed for the long run, then it's never painful. But if you're just looking for, instant gratification, it's going to be a painful grind, and there's a high likelihood you won't be successful. I think that, like anything, if you're willing to just commit to practice, right, over time, you can create results. Eden, my wife, one of her favorite quotes is, and I don't know who says it's an anonymous quote, but it says, "There's no glory in practice, but without practice, there can be no glory."
Maybe you should write your name on the bottom of that. No, it's so true. I'm going to come over to you, Lindsay, again, just in that mindset of when, you've helped grow a lot of people. When we understand the philosophy of network marketing, we understand that, both your incomes, which are extraordinary, and especially in light of what you just said. I mean, geez, 5 years, what did you say, 2.5? 2.5. Now, again, those of you listening to this, we'd have to do a disclaimer here to say, Lindsay's had thousands and thousands and thousands of conversations, and she's endured thousands and thousands and thousands of people saying no to her. And she's had to work tirelessly, $2.5 million, tell Zach and I, very, very importantly, the work ethic of Lindsay. It wasn't like she got in at the right time or the right place, because she's only been around for a few years. 5 years isn't that long, right? So it's not a question of that. It was the question of our highest income earner probably hasn't even signed up yet, because if you're willing to do the work, like Zach said. But what do you think, Lindsay, when you're looking at people that have said yes to you, what is that quality of someone who's going to replicate what you've done? We're going to be talking about duplication, but somebody who 5 years from now is going to be saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I've made $2 million in my business. What are those qualities today that that you're looking for the person that will do that in 5 years? What's the difference?
I mean, the qualities that I look for are someone who's coachable, someone who is going to take my advice and implement it. Because there are a lot of people who come in and they'll listen to like a training call or something, or they're just like want to train forever, or listen to 20, 30 hours of training, but they're not actually taking action. So someone who wants to take action, someone who understands that rejection is part and parcel. Like, you don't get to where Zach and I have gotten to without just tons and tons and tons of rejection. But it's not about you. It's not about, they're not rejecting you, And so people have to really secure themselves in who they are and what they believe about themselves in order to succeed in this. And honestly, that's it. It's a super short list. It's a super short list.
Whoa. You're saying, I'm going to decipher it. Oh, Zach, you jump in and you help me with this one. So what we heard was, if you're really coachable and you do the things you're asked to do and you do them consistently, then you can succeed. Is that what I just heard?
That's what I said.
Zach, did I miss something? We say this is a simple business. Is that really why duplication is so powerful?
What is it? Occam's razor. Usually the simplest explanation is the right explanation.
That's awesome. Zach,
that's just the problem though, David. It's like people get caught up in the no's. They get caught up in the failures. They get caught up in, the ups and the downs of their business. They get caught up in, everything. And I guess that's the beauty. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. Like, if people are like, well, gosh, like, why does she have so much success? She's never been in network marketing before, blah, blah, blah. I was in a business, okay? And I understand that businesses have ups and downs. Businesses have days where your refrigerator goes out and you throw out $5,000 worth of food that you bought because your refrigerator broke, and that's a loss. Like, you just suck it up, like, I think having the benefit of having been a business owner and dealing with some of the tragedies of business ownership gave me a little bit of a shell that I needed to become a business owner in network marketing. And I woke up every day and treated this like a business. And in my store, in my franchise, if I didn't show up for 5 or 6 days and there was a closed button or a closed sign on the door, on day 6 or 7, your customer is not going to come back and see if it's open again. And it's so easy for me to equate the same principles to this business, but I've always treated it like a business. I've never treated it like a side hustle. I've never treated it like a part-time gig. I've always treated this like a full-time business. And I would say that that's probably the most difficult thing for people to marry, is because they just, I don't even know that I could say why they can't get comfortable with that idea. I'm not sure that I have that answer. Zach does.
Well, it's funny. Zach, with that idea in mind, we talk about it being hard, and there is but there's that great quality or question, which is choosing your hard. When I think about Lindsay's story and your own story, we haven't got into that yet, but about if we use Lindsay as the example of 5 children and a franchise and the work and the stress and the not making money and the not seeing each other, no time, no quality of time. I mean, that's hard. Or the person listening right now who's in a job they really dislike and with a boss that treats them like crap, and they're getting paid just enough so they can make it to the end of the month, or maybe not even all the way to the end of the month. That's hard. When you hear that, when you say choose your hard, what comes up for you as you're sort of hearing that statement?
For Lindsay or for me?
For you, Zach.
I think that there's a Buddhist saying, right? They say life is suffering. And not in a physical way, but life is suffering because of the thoughts that we allow to consume ourselves. And I think that our choices are also indicative of the degree to which we want to suffer in life, right? So got to put food on the table, keep a roof over our heads. It's to some degree experience some level of enjoyment, freedom, travel, love, passions, whatever it may be. And there's an exchange for that. There's just an exchange for that, because that's just the way that the world works. Whether you agree with capitalism, don't agree with capitalism is irrelevant. We're in the game, right? And so as long as you're going to be in the game, decide how you want to play the game. And I just think that for me, when I looked at it, I said, yeah, okay, I understand that I'm a little bit crazier than everybody else because I'm going to pursue all these other entrepreneurial endeavors. I understand that I'm going to face seasons of not knowing where my next meal is going to come from, or knowing if I'm going to be able to pay my bills. And for me, the exchange of the long-term payoff was always well worth it compared to sitting in a cubicle and feeling like the life was being sucked out of me. Now, that's not to take away from people that are willing to go to a job every single day. I mean, I actually have a lot of respect for those kinds of people, because I can't do it psychologically. It was too painful for me. And I just think we've got to ask ourselves the question of, okay, what am I willing to exchange in order to create some sort of reality for myself? And so, yeah, I think the idea of choose your hard is valid, but I also think that when you start to understand the dynamics of how business works and how money works and how leverage works, then what you start to recognize is there are actually varying levels of hard. There's a huge kind of range of what hard looks like, because my hard today is very, very different than what my hard was when I was 20, 24, 25 years old coming up in the game. So I think that there are variants that are involved, and I'd rather choose to put myself in a position where my hard is still being done in an intelligent way, so that the majority of my time is spent in ease, as opposed to the majority of my time being spent in stress and anxiety and frustration and anger and disbelief and disillusionment around my life.
Wow, so powerful. Lindsay, if we talk about duplication, I really want to get into the art and power of duplication. When you've built a really, really strong team. And when we call a strong team, it's not about your income. We mentioned your income, but if I was to dissect why you've made that much money, I'm going to see within your team where there are people who are succeeding at, and a lot of people who are succeeding, and a huge customer base. But when when someone sort of links arms with you in the beginning, how do you get across? How do you share with them the sort of the duplication factor? Because it kind of, you've got someone who's got an entrepreneurial spirit. What's the first thing that most entrepreneurs want to do? They want to do it their own way. They want to create their own thing. And I've watched over 16 years, so many people come into this company and try it their own way, only to, and in the beginning it looks so fancy, and other people are like, oh, wow, look at all the widgets on that thing, but they tend, I've never seen it succeed. I've always gone back to those principles, the art of duplication. So let's get there. What is some of the things that you consider right away? What's some of the things that these people who are watching us right now, when they're starting to think about duplication, what's the things you want them to consider?
I mean, I really there's just a few things that are really important to this. It's number of conversations. So in order to enroll or get people started with Isagenix, you have to have conversations. And so, helping them understand that, starting those conversations. So making a list. And I know there are a lot of people who just don't want to make a list. They just are like, forget it, just tell me what to do. But the reason why making a list is important is because of focus and intentions. And really seeking out the people who are right for your business. And I've made hundreds of lists and ripped them up and crossed names off and like, but just making a list because it gives you focused effort. And here's the other thing. And
hold on, before you say that other thing, it's so hilarious is that week 1 with Emily Vavra, what did she start with?
Make a list.
Make a list. Where we come all the way back to all this genius, and where do you come from? Hey, make a list. I mean, how? If that's not the art of duplication at its core, then nothing is, right? Carry on. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Make a list. Make a list. But the thing is like you have to have that intention and that focused time. Here's the other problem: is that people will look at my life now and they'll compare themselves to me. And back when I started, I was a mom of a 2-year-old. My son's now 7, so my youngest son is now 7. I had a 2-year-old. I was also doing all the marketing for the business, the franchise business, and I was driving a pizza truck all over town, making pizzas for school fundraisers in a 750-degree trailer with 3 ovens on. And people don't understand, like, I was very much in the pockets of my time back then. Like, now I have all day. I'm the sole provider for our family. And so I work this as a job. But back then it was very much in the pocket. So the other thing I really want people to really tell me is, like, really tell me honestly how much time you have to do this. I just want to know the increment, because like you said, I can tell you what to do in that period of time to move the dial. But honestly, 80% of that time has to be spent prospecting. So I'm not good at math, but if you had 2 hours a week, 80% of that 2 hours, which is, I don't know how long.
Zach will tell you.
Zach, are you good at math?
Yeah,
anyway, 80% of that time needs to be spent prospecting, having new conversations. So having new conversations. What does that conversation look like? There's models. There's scripts, there's things out there for you to lean into to do that. But, have the conversations, start new conversations, use the system to have the conversation. And it's really just do that over and over and over again. Now, in order to create that duplication, people have to be taught those steps and do those steps over and over. And here's what I found, that, honestly, is that people are, for whatever reason, less and less willing to suffer the consequences of being new. They're not willing to suffer. They don't want to look new at something. They don't want to look like they're uncertain or don't know what to say. They don't want to be like, okay, I'm not sure about that. I'm going to have to go ask someone and come back. And that's honestly what kills most people's dreams right up front, is because they're unwilling to do the practice, like Zach said, the repetition and the practice that it takes to get good at something. And that is honestly where I feel like most people fail. It's not even in the art of duplication. It's in the fact that they don't want to look like they're new, or they don't want to look like they're learning, and they want to just step into something and be a master right up front. And it takes time to develop relationships. It takes time to have conversations. It takes time to hear objections and overcome objections. Those things don't just magically, mystically happen. They only happen through practice. And so when I talk to people about doing this business and having success and going down the line of enrolling people and creating consultants, I want them to know that the process is ugly. And the process is dirty and messy. And the process is not going to look like they think it's going to look. And so, yes, we have a system and a track and a thing to do, but if they're unwilling to look new, they won't get very far. They'll stop before they even get to that point.
Zach, I mean, I see you nodding and maybe even making a note or two there, but what's your thoughts around that? Because this is such a big piece, this, when you're growing people, or, if you move on from where Lindsay was talking about, that fear people have around, looking like a beginner or failing or rejection. I mean, really, it comes down to that fear of rejection, right? I mean, which is one of those big fears. But how are you successfully creating duplication, and what's some of the things that you want people to understand about that process?
One of the reasons I was smiling and nodding, and just going back to your question around why Isagenix, one of the challenges in our industry is that there's the overindulgent conversation around how easy this is, and just get in tomorrow and you're gonna make $1 million. And I just appreciate, and this is just who we are as a company and who Lindsay is as a person. We've obviously worked closely together for a couple of years now. Just the transparency for those of you that are watching us to understand that whether you want to create an extra $1,000 a month or an extra $10,000 a month, it's going to require you changing up some things in your life in terms of how you do things and who you choose to be and how you show up. And so I just think that that's an important part to reiterate. And then in terms of the willingness to, look bad and get messy and all that stuff, it's a rite of passage. You know what I mean? Like it's a rite of passage. And I think that something I've learned in my own life, and we don't need to get into it right now, but I've experienced a lot of life in a fairly short period of time. And what I'm convinced of, just so convicted of in my belief, is that our greatest trials is that 80% of what we experience is so we can turn around and pay forward what we've experienced as lessons to other people. I'm so convinced of that because there are just so many instances in my life where I find somebody who I'm coaching or working with and I go, oh, God, okay, I can guide you because I understand inherently where you are in this journey. And so the same thing for this business, right? If you want to develop a team and a culture that wins and that creates and that's sustainable and long term, you got to be willing to take that leap. You got to be willing to be the one that gets messy, because what's going to happen is you're going to bring people in your organization and they're going to start being frustrated and they'll start experiencing rejection, or they'll be in paralysis, and you can really empathetically and compassionately as a leader communicate with them exactly, understanding exactly where they're at and how they feel. And then you can provide kind of this platform through which they can now also start to create new results because you've been there, and I think that's what makes leadership important. I think that's what's important when it comes to leadership and when it comes to duplication, is a willingness to say, like, hey, I'm not just shouting from the rooftops, hey, go do this. It's like Jim Rohn said, it's let's go do this. And you're going to trust me to say, let's go do this, because you know that I can completely resonate with what you're experiencing right now when it comes to all these fears and whatnot. So I think it's a necessity.
Yeah, it's interesting when you said that, because I think I often call about my profession about, a bunch of wounded healers, right? Is that, and you look at anyone right now, whatever happened in your life, to Zach's point, if you went through any kind of, abuse at home, what often happens is, you feel called to help kids. So, you are, your purpose or your passion is around that. So quite often, and that's what I love about Isagenix. It's not your life, but it allows you to create the life of your dream. And it's part of your life for sure, but there's other things, so many things that you contribute to outside of these walls, because you have the time freedom, you have the financial freedom. But going back to those roots of what your values are and where you want to contribute, and the fact that we're in the business of really helping and growing people. But Zach, to that point, when you're, again, starting somebody out, just give us a little look. Someone's listening to you right now. What's the conversation? Because I think that's this expectations being so far out of whack, and so many people quit, not because they thought it was going to be easier, and because their leader has never really set the framework or the groundwork for them to understand that quite often it feels like you do so much work in the beginning and get paid so little, because they don't understand you're building this long-term residual asset. So, they're like, oh my God, I worked all month and look, I only earned $300, right? But what's the conversation you have to set that tone in someone so that they have a realistic expectation to what's coming?
Okay, so before I answer that question, can I just kind of touch on some of the principles of duplication that
please. Yeah.
Because this is a big one. What I want people to understand is that everything duplicates, positively or negatively. And what I mean by that is everything that you do when you bring somebody into your organization, they're going to do that 10x. There's an old saying, what parents do in moderation, children do in excess, right? So if you say a curse word one time around a little 4-year-old, what are they going to do? They're going to say that curse word all around the room, right? So it's really important to understand that everything that we do duplicates. Well, why is it important to understand that everything we do duplicates? Is you have to understand the mechanism of the business model of network marketing. Why are we actually in the business? We're in the business to create leverage and, like you said, to create residual income. But the only way I can create leverage and residual income is if I create an environment where people are system dependent and not people dependent. If everything is on me, if I'm required to answer every question, do every 3-way call, do every single presentation, I'll never be able to remove myself from the business and actually enjoy the money that I'm making, which to me is silly. Why? That's not the point. The other side of it is understanding that if I want to make some okay money and make that $300 to $500 a month and have a sales job, then I can sell some products. Fine. Nothing wrong with that. And again, though, if you want to have something that really allows you to make money while you sleep, then duplication is the fundamental foundation where everything exists. And the holy grail of duplication, before I answer your question, is this. The holy grail of duplication, that's what I want everyone to get as you're watching this, is you've learned from amazing leaders over these last 5 weeks, right? You've learned incredible content from people that have gotten results in their businesses, in their lives. And when you go about implementing these strategies or conversations or whatever it may be, what I want you to understand is that your prospect is evaluating something very, very, very simple. They're answering one question and one question only, and it's the holy grail of network marketing. What you want your prospect to be able to do is to observe your process with them and simply utter the words, I can do that.
Yeah.
That's it. I can do that. Because we have to remember that the vast majority of the population are not trained to think like business owners. They're not trained with excellent skill sets when it comes to sales, marketing, branding, whatever it is. They're taught to be employees. So there has to be a feeling of coming into a business model where it's a completely foreign language and feel like from the get-go, they're being set up for success. They're being put in a position to win because what you've taken them through is so easily digestible that they feel like they can get into action right away and get into it on day one. So I just think that that's a really important thing.
I think it's so powerful what you just said. And, you know, it's funny because as you were talking, I think both Lindsay and I could have, if you hadn't have said what the Holy Grail was, you could hear me mouthing it along with you because I think we understand it. But I think what is so often misunderstood, Zach, is I can't do that is the most common thought that most network or new network marketers are having without the leader or the person that's enrolled of understanding, because it feels like it's such a complex sort of in so many ways it becomes so complicated. So yeah, you want to say I can do that, but you got to understand that in most cases they're thinking I can't do that. You know, and that's why, again, when you remove you out of the equation, because you're a brilliant man and you're a brilliant lady, a woman, Lindsay. And so as people looking at you, if you don't have this duplication mindset and the simplicity factor, and that even a young child coming in could say, oh, I can do that. You know, how powerful that is, but also understanding that deep-rooted thought of, oh, I can't do it. And the thing is that they don't come up to you, right? People don't come up to you and say, I'm really struggling and I'm thinking of quitting. I mean, that's rarely the conversation. They just kind of slip away and fade away and their dreams go with them down this other road. And it's rarely that people come up and articulate that. Lindsay, do you want to talk a little bit about what Zach just said? Because it's such a powerful concept. Is there anything you want to add to that? And we'll get back to the question I have for you, Zach. I mean, I haven't forgotten it.
Yeah, I just think that I don't know. I wish people would just take it at face value and just do their best to take the steps over and over and over until they become a master at it. And it's, you know, everyone, I feel like we're in such a microwave mentality where everyone just like, they just want it now. They just like, you know, I'm a professional network marketer now, you know, and I want people to know that it takes time. And there are people who come in with a set of skills. And so, you know, you might look at me or Zach and be like, well, she was already doing a business. She already had this mind, you know, whatever. But what they don't understand, and sometimes I'll even do this with my team, I'll find old videos, like the first video I've ever made, and I play it for them. And I'm like, look, see, I was a mess, you know, and it helps. It's actually like, do you want total honesty? It's harder for Zach and I at this level because we've accomplished so much. We start to not resemble someone who's duplicatable, you know, like Zach is, his verbiage and his stories and like everything and he's all his studying and all the books he's read. And, you know, it's hard for people to be like, oh, I can do that. But that's why it's so powerful for someone who's just getting started to bring someone along with them. Because like, if we're all doing it together, we're all doing it messy, we're all learning this process together, we're all going to excel together. And that's honestly like how my business started. So like, you look at it now and you're like, well, you duplicated this so many times. But in reality, what I did is when I started, I brought a lot of people with me. And a lot of people, some of those people aren't here anymore. Like I have executives who have hit executive and they're not here anymore. But I have a lot of people who have been with me a long time and learned that process right along with me. So they're the ones who remember the mess and the ugliness. But you know, it's even harder when someone's looking at you as a professional because they want to be you today and they don't know what you looked like 5 years ago. You know?
Well, I think that would relatability, right, Zach? I mean, I feel that sometimes I see leaders and they've lost that art of relatability, you know, because they start to, you know, smell their own ether, you know, it's kind of like, you know, start to feel, and that personal development thing, you know, which everyone seems to be a personal development guru today. It's almost separating them from sometimes from that mom who's got, you know, 4 kids and 2 jobs and she just can't see. So I think that sort of, you know, part of that relatability is important. So going back to the question I asked you and anything you want to add on that, do you want to go back to that?
I can. I mean, it's really Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? People think that they've made it to the mountaintop, this place of like self-actualization. And then you have people that are down here in survival mode and you're preaching like, oh, financial freedom, it's amazing, blah, 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 blah. And they can't hear you. They can't hear you. And even from new people, right? Even as you start to grow your business and make some money, like you got to remember where people, you know, are at in their lives. For me, there's this paradox of success that I kind of came to this realization of, you know, and that's this, that in order to become successful, you got to forget where you came from. You do. You got to forget what your identity was. You got to forget whatever conditioned beliefs you received, whatever limiting beliefs. And then in order to maintain success, you got to remember where you come from so that you can actually lead with empathy and compassion.
That's such a great nuance. You have me there. I was actually taking a drink of water as you said that. And I was wondering, I was thinking, where's he going with it? You know what? Brilliant. I heard so many things, but that's such a great nuance is that to start, you got to forget. You're not sort of anchored to that limitation or that past or the limiting beliefs of your parents or school or whatever, or whether you're bullied. But when you get there, you got to remember, you know, and that's where I think empathy and compassion and why certain people are so congruent is because they never forget. You know, and they have that. And I think Oprah is a good example of probably that, you know, where her struggles became so public. And she was probably the first person ever that was honest because everyone else thought, you know, being in front of the camera meant you had to be perfect. And here's this woman comes along and starts talking about, oh, God, you know, I'm 25 pounds heavier than I want to be. And I'm fat, you know, that kind of thing. So, wow, lovely. Carry on. Sorry, I just wanted to say how great that was. I enjoyed that.
Right on. So, okay, so I'll answer your question. So the question is, what's the first conversation I have with people to get them stuck into the kind of long-term thinking and whatnot?
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. So with that, how do you set the tone for the duplication process to really emerge? And how do you lead people down that path?
So a couple of ways. So one of the things I help them to understand is I say from the very beginning, what I want you to understand is that I literally say back what I've already kind of communicated in the conversation so far, which is, I'll role play and pretend Lindsay's the prospect, right? So I'll say to Lindsay, look, I say, just like with your virtual franchise, the same way that you had, you know, step-by-step instructions when it came to ingredients and measurements and recipes and whatever, we've also put together a very simple system that's going to guide you through exactly what to say, how to say it, how to answer certain questions, what tools to use. And even though you're a skilled business person, Lindsay, believe it or not, the system we have in place isn't necessarily developed with you in mind. It's actually developed with the person who has no experience in mind so that they can come in and understand that they can do this. So from the very, very beginning, I'm having that conversation. And then I move into something I call the GPS conversation. And I wish this is a conversation that the people that are watching this, I hope you take notes on it and really start to implement this. And it sounds like this. So I say to Lindsay, I want you to imagine for a moment that you've successfully been able to bring your husband home. You're working your Isagenix business. You're making multiple, six-figure income. You're traveling more often. You have all this free time with your kids and whatnot. And you're really celebrating life. And it's everything that you had dreamt of and more. What I want you to know is that'll have not been because of me. It'll have not been because of me. It'll be because you were willing to develop new skills, create new habits, follow a simple proven system. You were coachable. You were willing to come to events, get on team calls. You were willing to stretch and learn about yourself in ways that you never knew before. Now, on the opposite side of the coin, Lindsay, what I really also want you to understand is, and you're a business owner, so you get this, there's no guarantees of success whatsoever. So if for some reason this doesn't work out for you, which it might not, it's also not going to be because of me. Because the opposite will have been true. It'll be because you weren't coachable, you weren't willing to develop new habits, you weren't willing to follow a proven system, you weren't willing to develop new skills, you weren't willing to plug into personal development, you weren't willing to get the events, and so on. So ultimately what I'm sharing with you, Lindsay, is that your success or your quote-unquote failure is going to be up to you. Now, I'm going to be there to guide you every step of the way. And so just like the GPS in your car, you're going to tell me, Zach, here's the destination, here's where I want to go. And right now I know that your destination is being able to retire Peter from working at the franchises so you can all be home as a family, travel more, and enjoy life. So just like the GPS in your car, you're going to type in the destination. Well, here's how I want you to envision this. I'm the GPS and Isagenix is the vehicle. So I'm going to tell you, go straight, make a right, make a right. But if you make a left when I say make a right, okay, just like the GPS, recalculating. Okay, Lindsay, go straight, make a left. But if you make a right when I say make a left, okay, recalculating. See, Lindsay, just like the GPS in the car, the moment you type in the destination, I'm going to give you the most effective, least traffic-filled way to get to your destination. But I'm just the GPS, and Isagenix is the vehicle. You are the driver. And I have that conversation with every single person that raises their hand that wants to start the business. And then what I tell Lindsay is, I said, Lindsay, here's what I also know. I've been in this business a long time. I've seen a lot of people come and go. I've seen a lot of people get frustrated and then kind of fall away silently. And what I know is this, you're going to experience wall-kicking moments. There's going to be times when you want to quit. There's going to be times when you're really, really frustrated, no matter how much grit and resiliency you have. And I'll know that you're experiencing one of those moments because I won't see you on the calls. You won't be engaging in the Facebook groups. You won't be reaching out to me or anything along those lines. Lindsay, when that happens, how would you like me to handle it? Would you like me to reach out to you? Would you like me to call you? Would you like me to text you? How would you like me to handle it? And she might say something like, oh, please call me. Okay, so just to be clear, I have your permission when you're experiencing those moments to call you and remind you of why we started this drive in the first place. Is that correct? And then you're going to say yes. So that's the conversation I have with every person that says they really want to change their position in life through this business.
When I asked you that question, can you show me how to set the expectation, could easily be the best answer I've ever heard. And I was watching Lindsay's reaction to you, and I could tell that for her too, it was like, Lindsay, what came out as you heard that? Because I mean, the clarity of the responsibility part, which I love, whether you're success, nothing to do with me. Failure, nothing to do with me, and then how do you want me to handle it when you inevitably don't start showing up, which is, we know, can happen to every single leader, right? What was your thoughts as you were listening to that, Lindsay?
I don't know why Zach brings me so much joy.
None of us do. No.
It's because he speaks truth like all the time. And it's because he's a man of his word and he's a man of integrity. But what you're hearing, like this is why I was giggling. I've heard Zach tell that 6 times, maybe 7. Because what you don't know is that Zach and I used to live in Southern California. We lived about 45 minutes away from each other. We've done probably, how many Super Saturdays together, Zach? Like 6, 7, like a lot. So Zach and I have worked together a lot. And when I first started Isagenix, I would actually go to YouTube and I would Google leaders that I resonated with, or I felt like I really understood their way of communication, and Zach was high on the list. And I've listened to hundreds of his videos, but what just made me giggle is that I've heard this GPS conversation straight out of Zach's mouth like 100 times. And so what that tells me is this is Zach's art of duplication. This is Zach's, and it's so fun. Like, it's so fun to sit here 5 years into this and be like, I heard him tell that exact story year one. Now, the reason why I'm sharing that is because that's his duplication system. Like, he has these conversations, I have no doubt, with every single person who sits in front of him. Like, he has these conversations about the reality of this business and gets a commitment out of them and asks them what they want him to do when they're not showing up, and then he does it. And that is the purest form of duplication, is Zach showing up the same way every single day for every single person. And it just, I don't know why, it makes me giddy. Like, I love it.
I could see it. But what I think came to mind, I always think about Lynn Hagedorn, right? And what if she was sitting with the three of us right now, she'd say, mastering the mundane. You know, and it's like, Zach, you know, the mastery is that. What is mastery? I mean, you think about any sport in the world, like, you know, if you take one shot, a 3-pointer, let's say, or whatever that is, the person who stands on that line and does that, you know, 100,000, 200, 500, a million times is going to start hitting that all the time, right? But it's the same movement over and over and over and over and over again. Zach, I always like to look through the lens of the new person, and I'm imagining someone sitting there right now who's been brought in by someone who's been brought in by someone who's been brought in by someone who's been brought in, and they feel like they haven't really aligned with a leader with your clarity. And yet they still want to succeed. What's your advice to how they navigate these waters so they don't use that as their excuse? Because, you know, that's the next excuse, right? Oh, you don't understand. I'm on the inside of the inside. Or, you don't understand. I don't have a leader. Oh, you know. But what is your advice then if they don't have access to you or Lindsay, but they're in the same, they're in Isagenix, and of course, you know, you leverage the back office. But how would you guide them right now? What's your thoughts?
I think first of all, I'm not a huge fan of enabling people's victim stories. That's just not how I roll, you know? So the reality is that you are where you are, and if it is to be, it's up to me. And that's what entrepreneurship's all about, right? So whether you're going to do it here, or you're going to do it through a franchise model, or you're going to open a boutique, you know, on Main Street, at the end of the day, if it is to be, it's up to me. And so you've got to decide right now, right here, that regardless, no matter what, you're going to find a way. You're just going to find a way no matter what, whatever it takes. And whether or not you have a quote unquote direct mentor doesn't mean that you don't have access to somebody. It's just a collaborative environment. It's the nature of the business model. The other thing I want people to really understand is, yes, I've been fortunate and blessed to have brought, you know, attracted and sought out mentors in my life. But for the most part, my mentors are here. You know, I learned virtually for years. You know, when I was broke and struggling, I didn't have $5,000 to go to a personal development event or a leadership thing or whatever. So I'd buy a book, or I'd, you know, download a free PDF, and I'd study, and then I'd apply, and I'd study, and then I'd apply, and I'd study, and then I'd apply. So I think that there's all kinds of mentorship that's available. You know, Eden and I have created an environment where everything that we do, we put out there publicly, right? Like, we're all about that. That's one of the cool things about Isagenix is there's a ton of, you know, kind of cross-line collaboration, if you will. There's an abundance of resources available. Even consider the nature of this 6-week series. It's very rare that a company has the ability to get so many leaders to kind of come together. You know, Lindsay and I are not financially tied in any way, shape, or form, but we carry the belief that we're financially tied. So for those of you that are brand new, make no mistake, even if you're not in either of our organizations, we want you to be wildly successful. And the reason we want you to be wildly successful, and I really hope you hear this and understand this, is you're in our organization. And here's what I mean by that. If, let's say you're like I was, you just wanted more in life, struggling entrepreneur, tried a billion different things, know that you're meant for more in life, and you're just looking for the right vehicle. And you listen to something that Lindsay shared, or David shared, or Emily shared, or any of the other trainers shared, and you take that and you apply it time and time again, and you start to create new results. Now, all of a sudden, it's you that's doing these trainings. It's you that's created freedom in your life. It's you that's traveling around the world. It's you that's having this experience. Well, guess what just happened? I have a new story I can share. And this business, at the end of the day, is about sharing and telling stories of empowerment and what's possible in people's lives. So please understand that regardless of where you fall in any tree or organizational structure or whatever, ultimately, everybody in this company is cheering you on to win. And that's why there's an abundance of information. But at the end of the day, it's just information. It's just information. It's just a training, and it's meaningless if you don't apply it consistently over time.
Yeah, so good. Lindsay, let's talk a little bit about, when you started out, you were in a situation, you said you fell in love with the products, and then you saw an opportunity here, and obviously you've taken full advantage of it. There are people like you who have many children, and they have another business, or they have a job, and they want this. So this is their side hustle or their gig, their side gig. What's your recommendation to how they spend their day when they're new and considering they're busy? And then I'd like to look into how you spend your day to day, because there is this sort of evolution of a great leader who continues to grow. And we've heard that week after week after week now, where leaders who are really succeeding are in the do. They're still doing the do, but maybe they allocate their day differently. But what's your advice to someone listening right now about, okay, listen, so you have this window of time, and you actually mentioned that a moment ago. You said, I like to get clear on how much time are we dealing with here. But, and I know you talked about the conversation part, but how does someone sort of manage their time? Because when they get off this call and they're going to go into action, let's give them a little map about how to allocate that time.
Right. So I would say that, again, like 80% of their time needs to be spent prospecting. So that means starting conversations with people who they are interested in bringing into their business. So invites, number of invites that you give to people to take a look at what you're doing. That has to be paramount, because that is the lifeblood of your business. So you have to start conversations. You have to ask people to take a look. And honestly, when you're just starting, the majority of your time has to be spent doing that. If you're brand new, the other 20% probably needs to be done listening to trainings, like 10% listening to trainings, okay? And the other 10% maybe teaching someone that you just brought on what to do. So that's how I would break down the time structure, like 80% prospecting, bringing on new people, 10%, helping / training someone else that you just brought into this business, and 10% on yourself, because you do have to spend the time developing the right thought patterns and the right habits and the right things in order to succeed through this. Because it doesn't matter how good you think you are, you'll be challenged. Like there's no, is it a glass ceiling? Like there's no level to which you get where you're like, I'm immune. I'm immune from challenges. I'm immune from problems. I'm immune from mean people. Like there's no place where you get to where that doesn't happen. So you do have to invest in yourself as well. And it doesn't, like Zach said, it doesn't take going to a seminar and paying $5,000 and, going to a mastermind. You don't have to do that. You need to spend time reading and developing yourself. And I actually last night, I bought 5 books, and I'm going to read them all before Christmas. I just decided, I was like, I want to spend some time on myself and working on my mindset and learning better skills for me. And I committed myself to reading 5 books before Christmas. And I'm going to do it. I have one sitting right here. So I think you have to spend some time working on you too.
And when you talk about not being immune to this, I tell you one thing though, as you do grow and you work on that mindset and you understand how important environment is, you don't notice it. So that crap out there that may be impacting you today, it's only crap because you tend to put your focus on there. And as you start to grow more and you start to understand how you want to feel, and that you are the sort of the steward of your, the helm of your own ship. I mean, I don't know that people keep talking about, haters. I don't even know what a hater is. And if someone was to put an opinion contrary to mine on my Facebook page or my Instagram, I wouldn't consider it hating. And in fact, I've had people say some rude things. I'm interested. What makes them think that? And I'm just totally, and I've had people come right back and say, oh, I'm sorry, man. I said, oh, don't be sorry. Your opinion's valid. I just want to understand what was triggering the opinion. And so why is that a hater? But I mean, if someone says something contrary to what you believe and you consider that to be a hater, how hard is life? Oh, the haters out there. Really?
Super hard.
Haters? So I think people, sometimes we get caught up in that. So immunity isn't something, you're not immune to it, but there is a possibility as you grow and expand that it doesn't become what it was. It doesn't become so big. Before I go to Zach, because I want Zach to answer this as well, talk to us about tools. What are some of the duplication tools in those new processes? It's like even conversations or sharing stories. What are some of the tools that you're recommending? Because a lot of people don't know what to say. So are they using, is it a three-way call? Are they using videos? I mean, what kind of tools are creating that duplication process for you?
I mean, right now, the most beautiful duplication tool that we have is Penny. Because Penny, you know, you
By
can...
the way, that's an app, you new people. It's not like Penny. She doesn't work in the office, in case you wondered.
It's an app. But what makes that a beautiful tool is that it has all the resources right in there, so you can send a text or send a direct message to someone. You can keep track, because one of the problems that people have is really keeping track of conversations, knowing who they already spoke to, knowing where the conversation's at. And it allows you to be a master at following up, which is another problem that people really have. Like, if they get a no or they get a maybe, the number one thing out of their mouth is, I don't want to bug somebody. I don't want to bug them by following up. And if you're just a business owner or you're a master at business, follow-up is a key component to succeeding in any.
We covered that beautifully in week 4 with Susan Slay and Abby O'Neill. They were brilliant at that.
I'm so excited. Yeah. But yeah, I just feel like, there's things that you have to do in order to create, what I call a funnel. So you're putting the conversations are putting people in a funnel, and the people who are popping out of the bottom of the funnel are the people who are enrolling. And all the people who are sitting in the funnel, you have to take them through a process of showing them a video, which we have beautiful videos, so many beautiful videos to use, showing them, the products, explaining how they work, maybe, overcoming their objection on cost. And one of the members of my team, Kelly Egan, really compares it to a tennis match where you're just shooting back and forth a process of answering questions, overcoming objections. And if you're playing tennis with someone, you don't let the ball drop on your side of the court and sit. You send a message back. You send a question back. What else do you need to know to get started? I know that's one of Eden's favorite phrases. Like, what else do you need to know before you make a decision? So the process, I think that's why maybe sometimes people feel lost in this, is they're like, well, I did everything and they didn't say yes. They're like, well, I sent that video and then I did that and then no one said yes. So that's it. I failed. But the reality of it is that it's more than just one conversation. It's more than just one video. It's more than just, like, if you have a 100% close rate with one video or one conversation, you'll be out earning Zach and I momentarily. But the problem is that people, if like that system doesn't work on the first try, they're like, I'm over, I can't do this, I'm ruined. But it's really a process of going back, develop. Maybe the relationship isn't developed enough to the point where they're ready to give you a yes. Developing the relationship further, checking in, engaging with them, seeing how they are in the circumstances in their life. And this is another thing where Zach is so good at this, and he's even good at this like in real life too, not just his prospects.
In real life, he's good as well. Oh no!
Yeah. So like Zach is someone who stays in touch with you. Like, I'll get a text from Zach. He's just staying in touch. And that's just such a beautiful skill that he's learned through network marketing, where you just stay in touch with people. Because in 60 to 90 days, think about the last 60 to 90 days, people's lives have changed. And honestly, this past 180 days has been a little bit of a nightmare for most people. So
you got a 7-year-old.
I know. Things have shifted. And if you're not touching back with someone and checking back in and being like, where are you at right now? I would really love to serve you. I would really love to have you be a part of this. I'd really love to help you make some additional income. If you're not checking back, you don't have a business. So I think that too, like, sometimes people get, well, I followed the system. I did the program. No one said yes, I can't do this. And they've forgotten that this is a relationship business, and that you have to spend time developing people and friendships and conversations, and never let that tennis ball drop on your side of the court.
Awesome. I love the fact, Zach, that you I watch you writing things down and I know what that is, even the question. I mean, it's great. It's a great skill to just sort of keep yourself on track there. Going back to that same thing, if you want to answer the same question to me. And and listen, this is really important. I don't know if what Zach's about to say is even close to what Lindsay said. It doesn't matter, because every leader has, the system is the same. If you dissect the system, the approach is always slightly different. So again, how Zach allots time may be quite different, or his recommendation of how a new person allots time may be identical, may be different. So don't be confused if that happens. Just understand, this is what Zach does and it's what Lindsay does. And guess what? As two different entrepreneurial leaders, they can have slightly different approaches, but the system itself, within itself, is what's the same. Sorry, Zach, I just want to make sure that people, what Zach said and Lindsay said, now I'm confused. Now I'm going to stop work. That's called an excuse. Stop it. Okay.
So I would tend to agree with Lindsay, especially when you're new. I like metaphors and analogies and stuff. A rocket ship uses roughly 80% of its fuel just to take off. It uses the remaining 20% once it's broken through the atmosphere and it's in space, right? So 80% of the fuel. Well, when you look at a business and you watch a show like Shark Tank or Dragon's Den or whatever, what are these guys telling you? What are these women telling you? Look, I was working in my mom's basement 18, 19 hours a day. 18 or 19 hours a day for years, right? You look at the Starbucks story, he got turned down by 45 different banks, whatever it may be, right? You look at Damon John, like Fubu Clothing, right? He hustled on the streets for hours on end. And so this business is the exact same thing, right? So that 80% that Lindsay's talking about spent on personal prospecting and bringing in this first big group is really, really important. And here's something I want to caution all of you to understand from the get-go. And this is also a conversation I have very early on. You're going to make a list. And the ones you think will, won't. And the ones you think won't, they will. And the ones you think can, they can't. And the ones you think can't, absolutely can. And it's really important that you know that from the beginning, because you're going to be shocked at who comes into your business and who says no to your business. And one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is they come in, they bring in 5 people, 10 people, and then they go into what we call management mode. And it's the most dangerous thing you could ever possibly do. And you really have to understand how mature your business needs to be before you get to a point where the vast majority of your time isn't spent on personally bringing in new people. And one of the biggest, most powerful lessons in my career came from Lynn Hagedorn. So we got on a call with Lynn. We were in our 8th or 9th month. We had some good early success. And we got on a call with Lynn, and we were just picking her brain. And we said, any last bits of advice? And Lynn said, she was, now here's what's important. She was about to open her 3rd reentry. Okay. And for those of you that are brand new, right, that's a 3rd position. That means she'd already maxed out 2 other centers. So she's opening a 3rd center. And she said, Zach, I always carry the belief that my current team as constructed isn't going to take me to where I want to go. Mm-hmm. So here's someone who's already bumping up against $2 million a year, whose mindset is time to bring in a new class of people. And so I think the vast majority of your time, especially early days, is to really, really work in a big percentage of your time. Now, the other thing that's important is, regardless whether you're following things the way I do them or how Lindsay does them or whomever else you choose to align yourself with, your partners, whoever they are, please, please, please be disciplined in your duplication. And so what that means is, if you're learning from a world-class entrepreneur and network marketing professional like Susan Sly, for example, or Lisa DeMeo, or a Lynn, or a Lindsay, or a Jessica Rigner, whomever else, right? Trust that process implicitly and run it, because all that I see happening so often is people come in and they start to get some results, and then they see somebody else doing this over here, and then they change, and then here's what happens to your organization. You create confusion, and a confused mind takes no action. And remember what we said at the beginning, the feeling is always, I can do that, is what we're always looking to cultivate culturally. But if you're constantly changing your mind, and if you're constantly changing how you do things and what tools you use and what videos you send and whatever may be, your team is constantly going to be stuck in the mud, and you're going to constantly feel frustrated. So again, please be disciplined in your process and stay steadfast in that process until there will come a time, maybe in your career, where you go outside of and start to create on your own. But here's what I always tell people when they challenge me, and I'm fine with it, please, by all means. I just tell people, I say, hey, let me ask you a question. How much money, right? How much money would you love to be earning on a monthly basis? And they give me a number, and I say, cool. If I told you, and I'm not saying this to brag, but if I told you that I make about 10 times that in a month, would you be excited about my income over yours? And they say, yes. I go, how about we do this? How about you do things our way? Not that it's the only way, but how you do our things our way until you are like a quarter of the way, right, to what we're earning. And then from there, how does that sound? And then we usually get that agreement because, look, one of my first mentors in this industry said, Zach, think about it for a minute, man. He goes, if you think like successful people think, if you speak like successful people speak, if you read what successful people read, if you invest how successful people invest, if you market your products and services like successful people market their products and services, what's going to happen to you? What's a rhetorical question? I'm going to become successful. Right? So I think that that's so important is just stay disciplined in your duplication until give it a fair shot.
Yeah, great stuff. Lindsay, let's touch on, and because we're going to get close to the end of this, and those listening, I really want you to, the last thing we focus on could be the most important of the entire 6 weeks. So again, I really want you to stay diligent right now and not start sort of switching off here. But Lindsay, let's talk about the leadership in action formula. We've seen over 16 years. I've watched us do a lot of different things that have worked. But there's something about the leadership in action formula that seems to, and is going to be included in almost everything we're doing as far as promotions. And promotions, there's something about promotions that create duplication in a beautiful way and team synergy. But can you sort of lead us through, maybe someone listening now is not engaged, and we've had that with leaders. In fact, I did a show with one leader and they were listening to another leader going, holy crap. And they're like both successful. And the other leader's going, I'm going to start doing this more. I didn't realize the power of this. So I think that even some of our leaders don't get, the power of the leadership and action formula. Do you want to talk us through it and give us kind of like a little look behind the curtain of why it's so important and how people can capitalize on it?
Absolutely. I mean, what I love about the leader in action formula, it really is a capsule of how to be successful. That's all that it is. So Isagenix has taken this formula, and pretty much if you follow the formula, your business will grow. So the formula is simple. It's personal enrollments. So that's the first category, personal enrollments plus what they call 2 PET enrollments. So that means the people that you enrolled are enrolling people. Okay, so you can enroll people till the cows come home. If those people aren't sharing with anyone, your business is not duplicating. And I see that happen actually a lot because people are happy sharing the products, but they're not interested in sharing the duplication. The third part is rank advancement. So helping someone to take the next step into sharing, which is creating a consultant, manager, director, executive. You get a point for that. And then the weeks paid as your current rank. And they actually just changed it to this last year to be any rank, which I actually love because what they're trying to teach you is that if you maintain your rank at manager, director, executive, and you follow the leader in action formula, guess what? You will end up as a paid as executive, which is a beautiful gift. So this little capsule, and by the way, they've tied this capsule to all of our trips. And I am highly motivated by travel. So for me,
free travel.
I am all over this like the wettest blanket you've ever seen because I truly love to travel. I love to travel. So for me, this started at the very, very beginning. And I'll never forget because I missed the leader in action formula used to only apply to paid as executives. And the very first year I came into this business, I was, really moving quickly, doing all the things. I didn't get the first top achievers trip because I wasn't a paid executive for the full year. I hit executive in 90 days, but I didn't get the trip because I wasn't a paid as executive for the full year. Let me tell you what, I never have missed another trip. So here we go, friends. So this is such an important thing because it is, if you have a point in every category for the month, you can essentially equate that for business growth. And so tracking it, like printing out the sheet, tracking it every single month, if you want your business to see growth, essential, right? You have to track. You have to track, you know.
And we have those tools, and those tracking tools, you print them off, and we'll actually include them here. So yeah, awesome.
Yeah. The other thing, like from a leadership perspective, is there's a few reports that you can look at that actually show people's progress through the month. It's not live. It's a few weeks in a rear, but like if you're watching someone's progress and they haven't hit something in a category, you can absolutely be like, hey, look, you've hit everything in every category except this one category, and put a game plan together with them for what that looks like to get that category taken care of. So not to mention, they've thrown 2 pools, the manager and director pool, onto this. So if people are tracking this information, they're getting into the pools, and you're able to cast a vision for them for what is possible. So let me just tell you a really quick story. One of my newest builders came to me the other day and she said, I'm in a lot of debt. I won't disclose how much, but I'm in a lot of debt. And on it, that was when I came to Isagenix, we were in $60,000 worth of debt. I just found the paper the other day. And, you know, it was school loans. It was debt from the last recession. I won't tell my whole story, but the last recession where we were in a bad business deal, lost the business, lost the investment in that business, and had to pay for it in a lawsuit, which we won, but he never paid. Anyway, through the last recession, my husband was underemployed and unemployed, and we were in $60,000 worth of debt. And I felt her immediately, because that's where I had come from. And I said, no worries, let me show you how you can get this paid for. We got her to manager. I showed her how many points that she would get in the manager pool. I said, you're going to earn, based on the current manager pool shares, about $800 in the month of December. How many people do you think you can enroll? She said, I think I can enroll 8 people with a premium pack. I said, great. How many people do you think you can get to consultant? She said 3. I said, great. I added the $300. I added all the pack bonuses. I said, I think with this, you can probably cycle 10 times next month, which is $540. And before 30 minutes was over, we had constructed how she could earn $2,000 next month. So it's a tool, and you should absolutely be leveraging that tool to teach your team members how to build an income. Now, she's not only going to get the $2,000 that we constructed, and obviously, like, if she doesn't get the enrollments and doesn't create the consultants, it's not going to happen. But I showed her the power. I showed her the power of how to build the income. And guess what? If she hits that goal, she's going to get paid in the manager pool again the next month. And if she hits that goal, she's going to be paid in the director pool the next month. And we're just going to keep working at her goals and shaving that. And shaving down her debt. But what an incredible gift. And that's what it was to me. And that's where I am fired up and focused to help people achieve their goals, because I get it. I was there. I've been in $60,000 worth of debt. It sucked. Pardon my French. It was horrendous.
That wasn't very French.
I know, right?
You knew what you meant, though.
I've been there. I understand how it feels, and it doesn't take long to take me back to that place where I understand what that feels like. And the stress, like when she called me and I heard the stress in her voice, I was like, I've been there, and I can.
So funny. It goes back to what Zach and I were talking about earlier, which was this relatability piece, you know, and a hierarchy of needs, right? You're up there and the person's struggling down here. Because you were there, it's never forgetting exactly what Zach talked about. You have to forget to start and never forget. So that connection and the relatability and the belief you pour to someone because of relatability and because you're saying, hey, I know exactly how that feels and it sucks. Excuse my French. Anyway, so right. So anyway, do you want to any added to that, Lindsay?
I just use that as a tool. Like if you're like, I really don't know exactly what I should be accomplishing every month. Use that as a tool. Make sure you hit every category every month. One in each category. I mean, more of course is going to move the dial faster, but like no less than 1 a month in every category. And you can actually build a sustainable business.
You know, that responsibility piece there, that last piece about make sure you not just your team, but make sure you hit every category. That's what I've seen really working, is someone looking at, and you've got leaders that said, there's not a month going to go by where I want to be a 0 in any of these, because I'm asking my team not to be 0. So I'm going to show them. And what they do is they send they publicly show their points. And, and again, I won't go into that sort of detail, but how cool is that? We can say, look what I did. And it really shows that team. And I think, Zach, you mentioned earlier when you said, let's do this, not like you do this, let's do this. Zach, do you want to touch on any of the leadership before we get to the last question?
No, I can't hold a candle to Lindsay. That's her wheelhouse. There's nothing.
Right. Well, there's 2 questions I have for you. One question, which I love how your mind is. I love both of your minds, but I love how your mind is around this. What's the question do you think I could have asked or should have asked so far with this last? We're going to go to the call to action, so not around that. But is there a question that I can ask you that you think would add value to this whole piece? Week 6, and it really is this sort of stepstone now into this next season as far as the people that are listening and watching, right?
Sure. I think another question is kind of, how do you really create a culture of duplication, right? How do you really drive that into the organization? And what I think about all the time is there's an old little commentary that says, if you give a person a fish, they'll eat for a day. If you teach a person to fish, they can eat for a lifetime. And if you just stop everything that you're doing and ask yourself the question, is what I'm about to do teaching someone to fish or giving them a fish? And allow that to be kind of your North Star in every decision that you make. And I mean every decision. And what you start to create is an environment of empowerment versus enabling. And enablement in any organization, network marketing or otherwise, only leads to one thing and one thing only, and that's cancerous toxicity. And eventually it erodes because everything becomes everybody else's fault. And so I really want you guys to be very, very disciplined in stopping and asking yourself, am I about to empower this person or enable them? And I mean nuanced, and I mean little things. So let's say Lindsay's brand new, and Lindsay says, hey, Zach, can you tell me again, how many points do I get for 2 PET enrollments in the Leader in Action formula? I'm not going to answer that question. I refuse. What I will say to Lindsay is, have you looked up the flyer in your back office yet? Have you looked up the flyer in your back office? Now I'm doing a couple things when I do that. First thing I'm doing is I'm letting her know early on that I don't work for her. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I don't. It's not about that. It's just that I want her to understand that, like we talked about in our very first conversation, if it is to be, it's up to me. I'm going to be there to guide you, but not do it for you. And then the other thing I'm doing is this, as crazy as it sounds, but on an unconscious level, as elementary as it sounds, to go to the back office and find a flyer, what Lindsay realizes is, oh, okay, if I can find this information, then what else can I do? I can do that. So every single thing that we do, and the thing that we forget about is once someone's in your business, they don't stop being a prospect. Think about what I just said, everybody. It's real important to remember that. Just because someone comes in, right, doesn't mean they stop being a prospect, because what we're constantly doing is we're constantly embedding a culture of this is how we do things. This is how the system operates. If you do this, you can also put yourself into a position of greater freedom. So again, just focusing on, is what I'm about to do, just like it would, and I'm not a parent, right? But again, is what I'm about to do, is it teaching my kid how to tie their shoes, or am I doing it for them? And how many times over again, if I do it for them, will they always rely on me later in life, right, when it comes to something important? So it's kind of that same concept. So really just focus on empowering versus enabling. Giving people a fish is nice, it's friendly, but is it really empowering them to create freedom in their lives in the long haul? No, it's the biggest disservice we could ever do for somebody. So that'd be one thing I want to add.
I thought that was a brilliant question I asked.
Phenomenal.
I'm just what can I say? I like a gifted interviewer. Look at that question. There's another side that says, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man a fish, he sits in a boat and drinks beer all day.
Beer all day. That's right.
All right. So last question for both of you. I'm going to start with you, Lindsay. Just a call to action. This is not just a call to action from today, but you think 6 weeks. I always think, in fact, I have very few of these signs up in my house. Zach, you've been in my house, but you see up there, sort of right there, it says it's never too late to start the day over. Where am I going? Right there somewhere, right? But, the idea that, starting in this moment, what's a call to action, Lindsay, that you want to give everyone as they're listening here?
I think my call to action would be stop studying and start doing. Start, maybe commit to yourself. Every day I'm going to do 10 reach outs, no matter how busy I am, no matter how frustrated I am, no matter how upset I am. Every single day I'm going to do 10 reach outs. And that's my commitment to myself. And because it's the action that builds the business, nothing else. It's just the action. If you don't have anyone in your business, you don't have anyone to rank advance. So let's start with the beginning. And let's start with, reaching out and connecting and having conversations and just committing to the process of having the conversations. So just start having the conversation. You know everything you need to know. That's the other thing that people do, right? They get ready to get ready. They have to do one more training call. They have to watch one more podcast. They have to listen to one more thing. And I told you an hour and a half ago that you should spend 10% of your time studying and listening. But there's the people who they spend 80% of their time studying, listening, and 20% of the time prospecting. So I just want them to flip the number. I want them to spend the 80% of the time prospecting, asking, having conversations, getting the commitment, making progress on their business goals, and put this practice studying aside for the 10%. But commit to a number that you can achieve every day. If it's 5, it's 5. If it's 2, it's 2. If it's 10, it's 10. If it's 20, it's 20. I don't really care because we all have different times and seasons and abilities and all the things. But it's the commitment to yourself for what you're going to accomplish. Whatever that is, that's what people need to do.
Awesome. I love the fact that you've come back to the same thing consistently over time. It's like this magic elixir, and it's just the same thing each time, which is so beautiful. It's not this complicated message. So thank you so much. And Zach?
Well, first of all, congratulations if you're watching week 6 and you've gone through all of this, right? It's a lot of information and there's a lot out there. And like Lindsay said, and I totally agree, ignorance on fire is better than knowledge on ice. But here's what I would say. You've gone through 6 weeks of training from world-class experts on what we do for a living. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to kind of just take a moment after you're done watching this, and I want you to just get really clear on what the future version of you looks like after all of this, and really start to imagine what a new reality could look and feel like in your life. And it doesn't even have to be that big. And what I mean by that is if right now, earning an extra $500 to $1,000 a month would be like a massive breath of fresh air, then start to just visualize yourself sleeping better at night because that one bill that's been, robbing you of sleep and causing anxiety is eliminated. But if you are a bigger thinker and a big dreamer, then that's great as well. And just start to kind of future envision what life could be like, right? When you do start to create the results that Lindsay's created in her life, or some of these other speakers that you've heard from creating their lives. And what I want you to start to do from a action perspective is I want you to start to hold yourself accountable to that future version of you, because it is going to get hard and you are going to face rejection, and there are going to be days that you want to quit, and there are going to be days where you want to, where you have a bad day at the office, or your kids drive you crazy, or somebody quits, or, a customer returns their box, or whatever number of factors that go with this incredibly unique and remarkable journey. And I just want you to pause and ask yourself the question when you might feel stuck, when you might feel like you're in paralysis, when you're not sure what to focus on, when you're not sure what decision to make, just stop and ask yourself the question, what would the future me choose? What would the future me that is stress-free, financially free, the future me that doesn't have to go to a job every day where I'm miserable, the future me where I'm in a great, where I feel physically, empowered, where I feel physically complete, where I feel like my work is significant, and where I feel like I'm contributing, where I feel fulfilled, and all of the benefits that you want to kind of add on to your future. Just stop and ask yourself the question, what would the future me choose? Because here's what I can guarantee you. If you stop and hold yourself accountable to that version of yourself, and you have that kind of clarity, all of the challenges get eradicated. All of the returns go away. All of the rejections become meaningless. All of the frustration literally goes out the window because you're so connected to this person who you know you're capable of becoming. So that's my big call to action to you, is identify what the future you looks like, feels like, thinks like, smells like, dresses like, talks like, reads like, whatever it may be. And then hold yourself accountable to that variation and allow that to guide you through, again, like I said, this incredibly remarkable journey.
So great. Thank you, both of you. Beautiful. And, as you're listening, just remember, this is a resource. You can go back into Isagenix Live. You can go into each one of these, and they're longer because we dove into specific conversations for a longer period of time, but you can fast forward through them. You can go and find pieces that you want to work on or areas you're challenging and go back and just work that piece. You say, well, this is an area I'm struggling. Well, in these 6 weeks, you're going to be able to find that area. You can skim through some things and actually utilize this as a tool and, of course, share it. And remember, what I love about our profession, it's, who we grow to be. And every single leader that I've had on have demonstrated that. And I asked them this question. If I ask both of you the same question, it's the same answer, totally. Who they've become, it far exceeds the income. And, and just sort of, that old adage, my wealth can only grow to the extent I grow myself. But what is real wealth? The financial side is one thing, but on that last breath, what I think about, it's always about connection and love and legacy and purpose, what we've left behind. So again, thank you for being a part of it. Thank you two again for just a beautiful contribution, and we'll definitely see you all on the other side.